Ready? Here we go.
Different points of view and highs and lows. A new perspective everywhere you go. Open up your mind, drown out the noise, and see if this connected. And see if this connected.
What's up, fam? Welcome to this Connected podcast. I'm Catholic.dad. Today we are talking about different situations, point of views about faith, life, and whatever comes along the way. To not necessarily agree, but definitely be listened to. This, of course, is from my perspective and from the perspective of my guest. Welcome to this Connected podcast. Today we start a new series, kind of like a monthly thing, maybe. You can see I have 3 other people with me, and this Connected podcast is going to do something different. We're calling this series Whine with YAM. Not yam like the potato yams, but it's like YAM, these young adult ministers that are with me. And wine, not just wine, but wine, this WHINE. So the premise of this podcast series that I've invited 3 of these my favorite people with me is just to chat, just to have a conversation, just to whine about yam. And because they're all adults, maybe every single month that we do this, we're going to test out a couple of bottles of wine just to tell you about what they taste like, because we can, because you guys are all adults, right? Tony, you're an adult, right?
Yeah, just don't look at me because you wouldn't believe it.
That's why we got you a beard. But anyways, I want to introduce my guests, my co-hosts for this series of podcasts. We have Tony Pimentel from St. Oscar Romero Catholic community. I still have a hard time with that. Catholic.
It doesn't roll off the tongue.
It just doesn't. And then we have Bethany, and we have Catherine from Our Lady of Assumption. I just want to say Ola, and it's like
Saint Our Lady of
Saint Our Lady of Assumption Catholic Church in San Bernardino. But but you guys know me. I'm Catholic.dad, and I get to hang out with young people. So
this is going so
why don't you guys
smooth.
Introduce yourself, because this is not going smooth at all. Our premiere podcast with young people, just kind of like youth ministry. It's a mess. So you guys take over. In that meantime, I'm gonna pour myself a glass because I think I need it.
I think you've had quite the day, Arnell.
I did. Oh my gosh, I spent 5 hours. I'm actually on vacation today, and I spent 5 hours of my vacation at Toyota, waiting for them to rotate my tires and change my oil. It's like, come on, I could have done that in an hour when someone could do it probably 15 minutes. But man, I was like, I need a bottle. That's why it's already halfway done. But anyways, go ahead. You guys take over, because I'm gonna pour myself a glass.
Ladies first.
And Catherine.
Oh man. All right. So everyone, hello. My name is Catherine. I'm a young adult minister at Our Lady of the Assumption. Cheers with coffee for us. I've been a minister here since actually the beginning of the pandemic. But I was still involved with Boundless. Before that, just someone who would come to the events. And prior to that, I was actually teaching in China for a year. And I feel, as ironic as it is, I feel that my faith grew that year I was in China, because when you're alone and it's just you and you're trying to fend out. And see, this is something I learned, not just there, but even now, especially right now, that when you're alone, I feel like that's when God reaches for you even more. and pulls you out of the depths even more. The other day I heard someone say that when we fall, you've heard the saying, when you hit rock bottom, right? It's not that you really hit rock bottom, because if you think of the foundation, who's the foundation? It's Jesus. So when you hit rock bottom, it's not that you fall on Jesus, and he's there waiting to catch you. And so I feel that's where I'm at right now in my faith. Like many other people, I think we've all struggled with the pandemic in a different way. I've struggled with it in my own ways. I don't really like talking about it too much, but like anyone else, I'm human. I struggle. Just because I'm smiling or joking or laughing doesn't mean that I'm not going through something hard, or that I'm grieving with somebody or helping someone go through this time. We know someone close to us who did lose their lives. Actually, I know a couple of people who did pass away from COVID, as maybe some of you as well. And it's really difficult to see someone because you just want to console them, but sometimes there's not much you can do but just be there next to them. So don't mean to turn this all sad and sappy.
But dude,
But
Kat, I just gotta say that you are, when I asked you to be part of this, you are probably one of those people that just brings a smile to everyone's face. I mean, come on, you started with, I spent a year teaching in China, and I'm like, the only thing that can come to my mind is a Mexican in China. How funny is that? That is hilarious. I mean, it's like, okay, so she went over there in communist China to do what? I mean, what did you do over there?
I taught English to adults, and I was talking about whining. I love some of my adult students. I felt like I had great relationships with some of them, but some of them would whine. Like, I guess culturally speaking, it's so different. Like here, I feel when something goes wrong here, sometimes people are quick to blame someone else, but people are also just as quick sometimes to take responsibility and ownership. Okay, maybe this didn't come out right because maybe I need to do something different. But over there, if the student is not learning, it's oftentimes the teacher's fault. But sometimes the teacher does all they can for their students. And it was crazy. So I guess that was the only stressful part of my job out there. I would actually kind of complain to my boss about it. I was like, dude, what do you want me to do? Like, you shouldn't always give them what they want or ask for, because you're only enabling them to continue to be that way, and you're going to keep complaining about them. So whose fault is it really that they're like that,
Wait, isn't that true here too? That when the kids don't learn, it's the teacher's fault, and you have parents who are like, who like, well, my student, my child only got this grade because you didn't teach them. Whereas when I was growing up, if I got a C, I mean, if I got a B, my mom would say it's your butt's fault, and now we're gonna take it out on your butt.
Oh, yes, it is
Right?
true. I did, when I was still teaching here, I did have, we did deal with some parents like that, but we try to help them. We try to work with them as much as possible. Some parents, and remember, I used to teach at a middle school. I don't know if I said that already, but some parents wanted us to give them a report of their child. I'm like, man, we have 150 kids. Like, your kid is no special than the other 150. And if we do that for your student, then shouldn't we be obligated to do that for all the other students too? Give like parents direct reports, And I don't know, it was really stressful. That's one of the reasons why I decided to kind of step away from teaching for now, because it did take a toll on me, on my mental health. I just felt it was stealing my joy. I was like, this is not fun for me anymore. I want to do something that's more impactful, where I feel like I'm reaching more people. What is that? I don't know, but that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to explore and decide that.
Man,
Drop the mic.
that was whining.
This is Whine with YAM after all, right?
I'm gonna tell you guys about this wine after we hear from the other two people here who are.
All right, ladies first.
We save the best for last.
That's right, Arnell.
Go ahead, Bethany. Tell us.
Like, how do I follow Catherine? Catherine is sincerely joy. She hears all of my whining. Like at 2:00 is like my peak complaining time, where she hears, I text her and I'm like, I am so tired and I need to take a nap.
I'm like, take a nap.
Yeah, I take a nap here. No, so my name is Bethany. Like Catherine, I am a young adult minister at Our Lady of the Assumption in San Bernardino. Our young adult ministry is called Boundless. Aside from that, professionally, I'm a school psychologist, and I taught I don't teach. I do school psych stuff in the same district that Catherine taught in before she left to China, and that has been a tremendous blessing. My first year as a psych has been virtual, so I joke with my coordinator and I say, I'm not going to remember how to be an actual psych because I have to do everything virtually. So when we go back, I have to learn all like my profession all over again. But doing my job virtually has been challenging because there are a lot of limitations because we can't see the kid, we can't work with the child, in person, hands on. So I can't really ascertain what their true abilities are. We rely heavily on parent reports and our virtual observations. But you know what? At the end of the day, we are doing our absolute best. And I believe that we are serving our population to the best of our ability. And I mean, our parents are pleased. And so at the end of the day, I think we're doing a good job. So I'm happy being in my position. So, and I like it too, because virtually I can look older than I do in person. And so I think I'm taken more seriously on Google Meet than I would in person. I'm only 5 feet tall. Arnell
No.
thinks you look 12. So
Yes, that is how we met.
But yeah, so I'm like, they don't know that I'm small, but it's okay. It works.
Yeah.
It works for me. So
Small but mighty.
tiny but mighty.
Tiny but mighty. That's right. My name is Tony Pimentel.
Hi,
And what's up? Unrelated to it sounding like the AA. Anyway, we're gonna bypass that one. Anyway, I've been on this podcast for many times. I don't even remember how many at this point. Last time I was on here was September, and a lot has changed. I have a beard, and I look more than 12 now. I look 13, and I'm just so excited. My birthday's passed. I turned 13. I'm no longer, Arnold, did you know this? I'm no longer the middle school and high school ministry coordinator at St. Oscar Romero.
Wait, what happened?
I got fired for no.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. No, I actually got my title changed, so I am the youth faith formation coordinator. Now I have to get used to saying that.
We
What
used
does
to call
that mean?
the
I don't know.
DRE.
Yeah, well, yeah, no.
Could have called Dr. Dre.
I don't know what to say to that, but anyway, so that means now I'm in charge of like literally everything youth related. That's sacramental preparation, faith formation, and youth ministry. And yeah, and I'm not a director, but I am a coordinator. And I'm just really happy to be here. You know what I think what I want this initiative to be is for us to share some laughs. We could say some serious things, but it's like what Catherine just mentioned. We don't know what's going on in each other's lives, but there are people that are sharing some laughs. And there is such thing as tears of a clown. There are things that are going on in each other's lives, but that doesn't mean that we can't also laugh as we go through it together, you know. And I think that's what I would like personally for this little initiative thing that we're doing here, this little series. And I think it's important. So yeah, I definitely get what Catherine was saying, just to tag on to that.
You have to laugh.
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time. If we can't find humor in what we're experiencing, I think we would all be in severe depression, you know? So we have to laugh.
Mhm.
Like
Hopefully people will listen to this and will be able to laugh at us.
Yeah.
Really laugh at each other.
Mainly me.
Yeah, basically we have an Instagram chat group channel. I don't know what you call that.
Group text.
Yeah, little group chat.
And we called it the roasting channel. Mainly Tony though. So
Yeah.
basically
No, it was the roasting channel, And then all it was just roasting me, so I changed it in parentheses and put mainly Tony.
Yeah, because it's more fun to to roast Tony because
Do I have that face or something? Because every group I've ever been a part of has always. Yeah, Catherine's just nodding her head
Yeah.
for those that aren't watching on
Yes.
YouTube. Yes,
I
Yes.
think
really
there are
do.
people that can
It's a
take it.
punching
And
bag.
people know that oh Tony can take it, so
Yeah.
let's just roast him.
Move on. Yeah.
Man,
Seriously.
I cry myself asleep.
No. By the way, you guys,
kidding.
this is super random, but I just remembered again, me being random. Earlier this year, I asked for prayer requests from friends, and one friend asked for, she was praying for her rainbow baby. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but a rainbow baby is a baby that's born after a series of maybe miscarriages or struggles of infertility. And her rainbow baby was born this morning. So I'm so happy. Praise God and thank our Blessed Mother for helping this little one arrive into this earth.
Yeah, amen
Aw.
to that. My sisters, my mom had a lot of children, and in our family, they're like skip sisters. Like my oldest sister couldn't have children,
Mhm.
and then the one after her couldn't stop having children, and then it would kind of like go back and forth. But my oldest sister also waited 13 years before her firstborn,
Oh,
and
wow.
then my other sister also waited a very long time to have her children. So I can understand about those rainbow babies. Uh,
Yeah.
it's such a blessing. I always say that I wish we would have had more children. I think one of the reasons why I totally got into youth ministry was I always loved hanging out with my daughter's friends and their soccer teams and
Mhm.
just the camaraderie, just growing up with a large family
Mhm.
is super cool. It's like
Wow.
trying to make each other cry, beating up on each other, and it's kind of like having your own war because you can have sides. And,
Yeah.
you can't just fight with your one sibling. It's kind of like who are you going to
Mhm.
talk to? But in my family, if you got in a fight with two of the siblings, you had six more. So it's like no biggie.
No biggie. Not at
But I want
all.
to share with you guys. This is that portion. I think we need to tell people what we're drinking. So I'm drinking a red glass of wine,
Mhm.
and it's actually a sangria. So I've never really drank any sangria, and it's called Bodega by San Antonio Winery, and
Ooh.
I wanted to share this because there's a history in San Antonio Winery. They actually make wine that's called church wine. Um, remember Prohibition in the 1920s,
Mhm.
1920s, yeah,
Mhm.
Prohibition prohibited alcohol in the United States.
Yeah.
And so all the wineries basically get wineries closed down, except for in Los Angeles, there was one winery that was saved, San Antonio Winery. Hey, they should be like giving us some money for promoting them. But San Antonio Winery got to stay open because they made a deal with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles to be the sole provider for red church wine. And so
Wow.
the wine still in LA Diocese is still made by San
San
Antonio Winery,
Antonio.
still in those big jugs called church wine. And that's the history of San Antonio Winery. And the wine that they use is kind of like if you've never tasted the wine that they have, it's Cardinal, um, the church wine. A little
Mm.
strong, but so sweet, so good. And that's why red wine. So, Tony, what are you drinking?
Arnell, I'm glad you asked. I'm a wine connoisseur. I got this wine at Walla Mart.
Oh,
Yes, and
Voila Mart Couture.
yeah, yes,
Not
yes, yes.
Target.
Not Target. No, it's Walla Mart, and it's a fancy. It's really expensive. It was 4.99 dollars, and it's by Winemaker Selection. It's rose, a bright and floral notes with the flavors of apricot and stone fruit. This is the legit stuff. It's very old, 2019. Very fancy stuff. It's it's all right. It's all right. I'm not much of a wine person other than whining, but it's all right.
Yeah, it's a rosé.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure, sure. I like I said, wine connoisseur.
And what are your beverage, Catherine and Bethany?
Great question. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm drinking coffee. I went on Pinterest to you find all kinds of things there. And one of the recipes that popped up was a caramel macchiato, and that's my favorite hot drink to drink
Me
from there.
too.
So I found how to make it. So I did my own spin on it. It didn't come out exactly as it, but I was looking I had to look up how to make the milk froth because I don't have a milk frother. And so I found a video on YouTube that actually shows you 4 different ways on how to do it. So I tried one of the ways and it semi worked. It was cool. So yeah, that's what I was drinking, but it's empty now.
How are you, Beth?
You guys are so fancy. I'm also drinking coffee and it is black. The reason why I drink black coffee is because for the longest time, I was on a calorie deficit. And so, black coffee has no calories. And so I don't do that anymore, but I've just never gone back. I love black coffee. So
Oh, I thought she was going to say I drank black coffee because it matches my soul.
I was thinking about that, but I was like, oh, I don't think I want that recorded.
So I did. I said it. But yeah, no.
That's the real reason, though.
But, that takes me on a tangent. Coffee. When we drink coffee, like Catherine drank coffee, caramel macchiato, I mean, how much coffee is in that? And do you really taste any of the coffee, or are you just tasting sugar and cream?
Great question.
Right?
I actually still taste the coffee. I can't remember what coffee my mom brewed, but I feel like it clashes with the coffee creamer that I like to use. So it gives it like this weird taste, weird flavor. But at times I do drink black coffee. Not my favorite, but if I want that caffeine boost, you better drink it straight black.
Yeah. I mean, it's, just as a comparison, wine and coffee, when you drink wine and it's kind of like the typical wines that are sweet wines, like the ones like the Stella Rosas and things
Yes,
like that. And people love them because they're super
so
sweet
sweet.
and especially
Yeah.
cold. Um, that's wine that I call kind of like a Starbucks kind of coffee, the caramel macchiato wine, because it's more sugar than is coffee. And then you have
Yeah,
like real wine like Merlot and things like that, a Chardonnay, where it
for
has
sure.
somewhat of a tangy, kind of almost a bitter flavor to it. And that's kind of like the wine that I kind of like, similar to
Yes.
a black coffee, where sometimes the coffee, when you taste it, has like almost a bitter flavor, bitter in a good way, not like bad, but you know. So I don't know why this conversation went into that, but I thought I'd share my wine because
No, that is interesting actually because my
I'm gonna
friend.
pour another.
No, go for it. My friends and I, we actually talk about that. My friend used to make fun of some of us and said, she would say, "Oh, you guys are babies for drinking Stella Rosa. Oh, look at you and your juice bottles." That's what she would say. And then she's like, "You guys got to drink real legit wine." I was like, "Well, what's real legit wine?" So one day she did show up with a bottle of legit wine. Oh gosh, yeah, I was like, "This is so bad. I should have, I guess, done more research on what is real wine and how." A little too much can be a little too much, you know. I was
It's
not
like
feeling
asking
it.
for the sugar. Can I have some sugar with my wine?
Yeah, but I will say now I don't know why at a really young age I had this appreciation for wine. I just knew I was gonna like something about it. Now I'm not saying that I'm an alcoholic because I don't drink often, but I have this newfound appreciation for wine, especially after doing wine tours. You know how they explain the process of the wine and how it's made. I'm like, wow, this is an art. I mean, I'm sure it's an art too to make beer, but I'm fascinated by the process that it takes to make wine.
Don't they stomp it with people's feet?
Yeah, I saw that in I Love Lucy.
Me too. It's like
Yeah.
we
Bars.
should. Yeah. That brings me back to like a youth night we did with middle schoolers, where they had to like pull grapes from a bowl of water and pull grapes out with their toes. It was so hilarious to put your feet in there and they're trying to grab like grapes in a bowl of water and transfer it into another container. Anyways, I don't know what the purpose and the premise of that youth night was, but I have pictures and it was funny.
Oh my gosh,
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I will agree with that. Yes.
Our priest did not appreciate it.
Arno, as if their lives are more awkward. Like you need to make their lives more awkward. That is the strangest thing.
Dude, I tell you, when kids, you guys all know this, you work with youth. When kids come into youth group, they're all super cool. And then they see someone like messing around and all of a sudden everybody wants to put their feet into that bowl to try to grab some grapes from, and all of a sudden everyone's no longer cool. Everyone's just having a laugh and laughing at each other. And then they realize that they have to eat the grapes after.
That's the funniest part.
So your priest didn't like that?
No,
I can't imagine why.
It was wasteful. He hated those nights where we wasted food. But we're saving souls. Like legit, I am getting a buzz. I think I drank that first glass a little too quick.
And that's why I don't. Yeah, that's.
And then you pour another glass.
Those are always the best. Okay, the best.
Just remind it the bottle's empty.
No.
Yeah.
The best kind of buzzes are those that you have over intellectual conversations, if I may call this that.
Oh yeah, this is very intellectual. We're talking about grapes and feet.
Oh yeah, very. Yeah.
So anyway,
should we do the jar?
Oh, you want to do the jar? You want me to ask a question? Because I do have a question.
Oh, go for it. Ooh, okay. I like questions.
This is a question that one of you guys actually sent me. It's not my question, so I can't take credit. So here's the thing. There is a stereotype that labels YAM as a ministry group. As a ministry group, people go to find a date. Do you think the stereotype is accurate? Why or why not?
Catherine, have you found a date? Because I've been a part of YAM for 3 years and I did not find it.
You know what? I will say that question bothers me, not because of what was asked, but
because
it's just
you can't find a date at YAM.
No, not that. No, not that. No, it's because I think if you're going to join a young adult ministry for that reason, then you have it all wrong. Because nothing is going to come to you if you have that mindset or mentality. Like, oh, maybe if I do this, I put myself out there like that. Yes, I think finding a date or finding that someone, if that's what you're praying for, it requires you to kind of put yourself out there and also trust God at the same time. But that shouldn't be your reason for joining, because there's way more depth into being a part of a young adult ministry than just dating.
You find the greatest type of love at young adult ministry, and that is God.
Amen. That's Jesus right there. I'm a gangster for Jesus. Everyone knows that.
Tony, do you have anything to say? Because I have something to add to that.
Yeah. So I don't know who wrote that. That's a weird question. So yeah, no, I've heard that many times, that young adult ministry is where people go like, oh, we'll find someone there, you know. No judgment toward those people that think that way, but no, I agree with what Catherine was saying. I think there's a healthy way to look about that in terms of, you know, there may be single people there that are very have a firm foundation with the faith and that sort of thing, and you just want to find someone so maybe you can grow in that vocation if that's where you're called to.
Yeah.
So that's a healthy way of looking at it, but again, like what Catherine was saying, not a reason to go to that. We're ultimately looking for a relationship with God. If that happens, if God's hand's like, hey, I'm going to also give you a spouse that way, praise God. If that doesn't happen, praise God still. That shouldn't be the ultimate reason. But the reason why I put that question there is because I do hear that often. And this is coming from someone that isn't really involved in young adult ministry. So I'm hearing it as someone kind of more outside. I've only attended a few young adult groups, and I've never done like leadership in young adult ministry. So, but I hear that stereotype. I'm like, I hear this more than once from multiple people. So I do think that is a stigma, but I don't think it's necessarily healthy. But there is some sort of there are little nuggets there that could be on the right track.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of go both ways on here. That sounded awkward, but that's where I met Tony. It's where I first met Tony. It was the young adult group.
That's true.
And our relationship has gone.
Look at our bromance.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's lasted longer than most.
That's where I met Catherine.
That's right.
See, ministry.
No judging.
Yeah, true story. I was looking for ways because I knew deep down that if I didn't get involved in some ministry, whether it was a choir, Boundless, I wouldn't be consistent in going to mass every Sunday. Yeah. It's almost like you need a reason to be there every Sunday. So I thought to myself, what's something that's going to keep me consistently coming? Because remember, I'm the one that goes by herself to church. Like I always ask my family, hey, you guys want to come to mass? But it's really rare that someone says yes. And it's gonna be up to me, kind of thing. And so being involved in these ministries has helped me tremendously be there every Sunday.
And as a parental perspective, one who has children who are young adults, when parents ask me, how do I get my daughter, my son involved in the church when there's nothing available to them, the referral I always give is find them a young adult ministry. Or, some moms out there, the abuelas and the mommies out there who are going, it's like, how do I get my daughter or my son to find a good Catholic spouse one day? And you know what? I'm not ashamed to say it. I said, get them involved in young adult ministry. I'm not going to tell them, hey, you know what? Go to a bar, ask them if they have good Catholic boys or girls there, and you'll find them. I mean, literally, if I was going to be asking someone at church or a friend and say, you know what, I'm not trying to hook my kids up, but if they were going to try to find someone of similar faith and values and person who has value, what would you recommend? I would hope that other parent or someone at church would say, you know what, go to that young adult ministry. Maybe they won't find that person there, but they'll definitely meet people and they have friends. And I think great romances and great marriages and relationships come from ministry. Even one of the rules I had when I was a youth minister was core team members and peer leaders may not date each other. You don't become a core team member to find your date, because sometimes that ruins it, because so and so dates and all of a sudden they break up, and the only thing you could hope for is that
never happens.
God takes the guy because he becomes a priest, or the girl becomes a nun, and then everything's even. But people take sides. But I remember a dad asking me, if you're not allowing them to date and these are the best people for them to meet, then where are they going to find that holy person to be their lifelong partner if you're not allowing them to entertain that dating? And it really made me think about it. And so I had to change the rule and said, if you are going to date, I need to know about it, and I need to be a part of that knowledge so that we can gauge if you guys are dating in a holy fashion, and that you're not using each other, you're not using the ministry as a forum to maintain that relationship. You know how it is? It's kind of like, oh, we're boyfriend and girlfriend in ministry only, but outside we absolutely have nothing in common except youth group or young adult group. It's like, oh,
that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great thing that the only thing you have in common is God,
right?
But should have something more.
Right.
Hopefully they find that. So anyway, so I think that someone who goes in to a young adult ministry to not intentionally specifically like stalk and go in there and says, I'm like looking, it's like, okay, who in here can I date? But
Right.
being open to maybe finding someone,
Mhm.
and it's like, I'm not in there to stalk or to say, you know what, okay, didn't find one here, let me go to another young adult ministry.
Oh yeah,
Um,
no.
but
Mm-mm.
God will send
Don't
you
do that.
places, and I think that's where he'll if he says, okay, that person's there,
Yeah.
then why say no?
Well, he does, and I think right now you mentioned when you were mentioning about the core team dating and whatnot. The word that came to mind was boundaries. Like establishing, it's important to have those boundaries set so that people remember like what the purpose is of that ministry existing in the first place. It's not a dating service. It's not a dating app, etc. It's there exclusively for God. Like look to Him first, and like you said, God will lead you. Oh, side note, there was one time someone at church, like, you know how you say, like, oh, abuelas and tias, or like, oh, who can I connect them with? Well, before the pandemic, there was someone I met in the church I was introduced to at our parish, and somehow came up. I was like, yeah, I'm single, you know? But I just said that. I didn't say anything about looking. She's like, oh, I have a son who's single. You want to meet him? I was like, oh my gosh, that is my nightmare. Like, don't force those things on me because I don't feel so comfortable meeting people, especially not right now. At that time, I felt super uncomfortable. Now, I think I'm warming up to the idea, but again, like I still don't like admitting the fact that yes, I'm single. I'm single with the purpose. And the vocation I feel like I'm being called to more and more because it keeps popping up is marriage. And it's so scary to me. And I don't like to admit to it because it is something very scary for me because of um my previous relationships and traumas and whatnot. And so right now as we speak, I'm working on healing those wounds within me so that I can move forward and live that life that God is calling me to live.
Oh.
Catherine, you're such a great model because society really, I think society promotes relationships, and if you're not in a relationship, that's bad. Being single is bad. So the fact that you embraced your singleness and you're taking this time, I think is really admirable, and we need to hear more of that, you know?
Yes. I've been single 5 years and counting, going on 6, and I'm good with that. I'm so proud of that because I learned my lessons a hard way. So, but I'm grateful that I had that time. And so hopefully if it's of inspiration to you, don't even trip because God got you.
Yeah. I was single for 28 years.
Wait, Arnell, because I used to get this a lot where a random parishioners, because I used to work during the masses, like making sure the liturgy was running smoothly. So I would get random parishioners that would come up and was like, I have this is my grandma impersonation. I have a old daughter that would like and she's single and she would love to meet a nice Catholic boy. I would get that all the time. And you don't know how to respond because you can't say no because that's rude, and you don't want to say yes because that's not true. So you just don't know what to say. Did you ever get that when you were young?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah. Actually, true story. When I was single all the way till 28, and although I was dating people, I wasn't bringing anyone home. And I remember my uncle whispered in my ear and said, "Are you interested in girls?" I was like, I was like, what? Because I wasn't taking anyone home. And when you're single, who are you hanging out with? Well, just your buds, and you're just going out with a bunch of guys, and the old people see that as, well, you're leaving dressed up, but you're not coming home and bringing home anyone. It's like, usually, so yeah, they were thinking weird thoughts, and so yeah. But
So
yeah,
how would
people
you
always try to
respond to
set
those
you up.
offers?
Yeah.
Oh, I do that, what you did, Tony, which was that awkward smile.
Ooh, I
And
gotta do my
oh,
laundry.
like,
Oh, I
oh,
gotta
that
wash
that's
my hair.
that's nice. Thank you. Um, so yeah, there is. I
Put
don't
her
think
on the
I've ever
list.
given a good response to that.
Yeah.
I had gone on a couple of set up dates, which was super awkward because that person knew it was set up date, and they actually also agreed to a date, and so we
Mm,
yeah, it doesn't work out.
mm-mm. No.
But yeah, going on almost 25 years, 24 years of marriage. Mirage. 18 years happily.
Oh my gosh.
I love that answer. Someone, always, I think it was an older couple who at our church said that they were celebrating their 65th wedding anniversary, and the man said they've been happily married 45. And everyone looked at each other, and his wife smacked him and said, "See?" But that's true though. I think a lot of people who go into marriage or who dream of becoming married and living out that sacrament think that once they get married, everything is like
Disney
happy.
movies.
Like in the movies, you live happily ever after. No one shows you what happens afterwards, where there's a sink full of things that you have to wash, or that you have to fix broken plumbing, or you wake up and not everyone smells nice, or things like that. So I think what is lacking is is that the reality of marriage is that there's an offering of sacrifice along with it.
Yeah.
That
So
it
true.
is very much just like our faith.
Mhm,
There's peaks and valleys.
mhm,
And as my mom said, if I only looked at the happy parts of my marriage, then it wouldn't have been complete, because the best parts of my mom, when she said her marriage, were those times that really challenged her and made it
mhm,
stronger. Because I think the reason why there's so much more separation and divorce is people live in this concept that marriage is, I'm supposed to live happily ever after, and
right.
I'm not happy right now, so I'm going to try to find somebody else who's going to make me happy. And I was always taught that your spouse is not the one who makes you happy. You
Mm,
have to be happy in the relationship, and together, one finds and bears fruit. So no, in my marriage, it's not always been happily ever after. There are times where it's kind of like, and it's just not what I dreamt of. It's not happy, and that's when the wine comes in. No, I'm just kidding. That's when really good conversations and a good psychologist comes in. Bethany, can I make an appointment? Do you have an opening? Just kidding.
Let me see if I can pencil you in.
Yeah. Which segues into maybe something like this, that there is such a stigma to mental health in our Catholic
mm,
faith, in majority of our cultures. I mean, from a Filipino culture who does not believe in mental health. That if you're going to go to a shrink or a therapist, there's something wrong with you, and
mm,
and and there is. Your marriage is on the rocks. Or you're struggling with depression or something like that, and people look down at that. Same thing in Hispanic culture. People look down at that. It's like, oh,
they
what's wrong
do.
with you? That doesn't run in the family.
Right.
So I really like to push people to say, you know what, if you're struggling with something, whether it's depression, anxiety, or marriage is suffering, seek counseling. Um, and
Agree.
and this is nothing against our holy priests, but sometimes, a lot of times, you need more than the priest. You need a person whose profession is that, a marriage family therapist.
Right.
Right? That requires another drink.
It,
And I think some of our priests do a good job in saying that actually out loud. They're like, look, I don't have all the answers. I can pray with them for you. We can discuss certain things, bounce ideas off each other. But some things do require you to go out and seek help from maybe someone who is a professional now who's studied for years in that. Maybe they can give you better perspective than what I can offer you.
I love priests who do that, who say, I don't have the answers, and who don't just leave their parishioners to just pray, but send them to actual help.
All right. Clinically Catholic just posted this earlier today. It's a mug. It says, it's okay to have GS and a therapist too.
Mhm.
Right?
Right.
Amen? Right?
Amen.
Amen.
To show your vulnerability is to show your strength. And I think that's
Definitely.
important.
I like that guy. I think I'm going to have him on the show soon.
I think I'm going to adopt him.
should. You should, Arno. He's really good. Like when he did that workshop for us over the summer for Boundless, it was amazing. Like I feel like it got all of us thinking about ourselves in a different point of view, but not just ourselves, but even the people that we serve, the people that we pray for, the people that we know, and kind of like, oh, okay, you know. I mean, we don't have all the answers. We never will, I don't think. But it did give you, at least for me, I feel gave me a higher level of self-awareness, myself and with others around me.
Yep, definitely. This is that pause where like somebody take over.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Hey, I know you were earlier, and not to go back to this, but I think one of the reasons why people forget to work on their marriage and to build their marriage, because our culture is so focused on the actual wedding day that they forget to prepare themselves and their hearts for what that marriage is going to consist of. I know some years ago I picked up a book. I don't know if you've heard of it, Things I Wish I'd Known Before We Got Married. It's by the same author that wrote The 5 Love Languages. And in the book, he says, you know, we always hear, oh, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I was like, man, this is not true. But then as I was reading this particular chapter on this quote, I began to realize, you know what? We unknowingly, whether we recognize it or not, we adopt some things from our own parents, you know?
Right.
And so he straight up says, if you want to know how your potential future spouse is going to be, or maybe you're thinking of building a life with this person, just look at how their parents are, and that's enough. And you'll know how this person is going to be. And that's where you got to ask yourself, is it worth it for me to build? Is this someone that I can build a life? Not worth it for me, but is this someone that I can build a life with, you know? And then it goes on and mentions different red flags, because I think sometimes people have been in relationships for so long that they don't leave for fear of being alone, that they're not going to find someone else. That they're only good enough for that person. And all those things, by the way, I just said, those are reasons why I stayed in my last long relationship. It took me years to finally say no more, and we are done. We are through. Like, there is no going back and forth. We're not going to talk anymore. Like, we really need to cut each other out of each other's lives, you know? And that was really hard for me to do, if I'm being honest.
Basically you're saying is before you get into that relationship, you know, look at the parents and say to yourself, how much therapy is this going to cost me in the long run?
Well, look at their
Something like
parents also, because there are people who are trying to stop that intergenerational, you know, those intergenerational issues. So yeah, you can look at their parents, but if they're making a conscious effort to not repeat those mistakes, then you have to take that into consideration as well. Just don't base it off of the parents. But yeah, no, definitely. Because sometimes I'll do things, I mean, not even necessarily bad things, but things that I'll do with my hands. I noticed that my mom does it too. And I was like, I get that from my mama, you know, like even like the smallest things. But yeah. Definitely. No, Dr. Gary Chapman is the author you were talking about. Excellent. He has excellent work.
Yeah, he is.
And you know what? It's funny that each and every one of us will have that moment one day when we turn into our parents. You know, I hit that when I'm like, I'm telling my kids something, and I'm like, oh my Jesus, I turned into my mom. That is literally something that my mom would do. And you're right, Bethany. You know, a lot of us make a very conscious effort to break that intergenerational issues or trauma that we experienced growing up. And, you know, not to blame our parents for anything, but they did what they knew or how they grew up in. But the beauty with your generation of the most educated group of people in the world that ever is that you guys are going into it with that knowledge.
Yes.
But I think what's important is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? Are you going to be condemned to repeat the past, or are you trying to make that change? And that change may not have happened with your generation, but definitely your kids will be better off. It's kind of like when my mom said, the reason why I'm pushing you, and people say, I'm very pushy. I like to push people into doing things.
Right.
But the reason I got that from my mom, oh my gosh, I turned into my mom. And she said, the reason why I push you to get an education, to study, or to do this is so that you can do better than me and my generation. And I think maybe that's being lost in this coming generation, because I think everyone's like settled as, oh, you do what you want. But my parents' generation and their parents' generation were like, no, 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 you do better than we do. I don't want you to be doing the same thing I'm doing. I want you to do better. So I don't know. That's my
Yeah.
take on that.
No,
But I love
agree.
that concept, intergenerational trauma, intergenerational issues.
Right.
Definitely a podcast coming soon.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things to consider. It's not saying to always hold it over that person, that concept, but that's something to give some thought, because there might be some little habits that you might not be able to stand. Guess what? When you marry that person, you're going to marry with those habits. And there's going to be days where that person annoys you, but as annoying as they are, guess what? You got to love them with all their annoyances, all their little things that maybe, like make you like, oh my gosh, why can't this person get it together? Like, you got to love them all. Like, I had a friend who told me, oh man, my husband annoyed me the other day. I was like, yeah, but and somehow instinctively, I don't know why, I said, yeah, but you got to love him even then. You got to love him with all his annoyances. She answered me like that. I thought that was funny.
Best wedding advice I was ever given was my children's great grandmother. The reason why we got married in the Philippines, she wouldn't allow us to get married in the United States. She said it's because there was divorce in the United States. I'm like, well, we're going to live in the United States regardless. So we had to all fly to the Philippines and get married there. So anyways, best advice, after we took our vows, she pulled us aside and said, whatever you hear, she says to me, whatever you hear from my side of the family, keep it in my side of the family. And then she told my wife, whatever you hear on his side of the family, keep it on his side of the family.
Ooh.
And never let each other's family learn about the issues that they're having. And she said, because your marriage is not simply a marriage between the two of you, your marriage is between two families. And if your two families do not get along, you will not get along.
No.
And I was like, wow, that is really, really wise words from a really old woman. But, wisdom in those words is that my wife's family and my family, they're like best friends. And they're like, if, they're just great friends. And I've seen friends whose families don't get along, and it's like, it affects the spouses, because you're gonna take sides. You're gonna take your family side. And it's like, how dare they talk about my parents that way, and vice versa. So best advice I ever got, and I share with those people who are intending on getting married in the future. So part of this series is we have this bowl of things, and we have nothing to talk about, but we have things to talk about. But I just want to make sure we test this out. So these are some things from the Tony roasting channel that we pull out, like random things that
It's just gonna be different things that insult me.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's
Oh
like
my
things that
gosh.
come out of Catherine's head, and we just have to write it down. So we put it in this bowl, and so we're gonna pull this one out. I don't know what this is, but oh crap. I just wrote Soul, the movie. I don't know if we have time to talk about this, but let's talk about that. Did you guys watch that movie, Soul?
Yes.
Well, what'd you think? What's your take on it?
I love the concept. I loved how it zoomed in, not so much on like the afterlife, but even the before. Like, that's one of those things. I know this is it's just a movie, but I guess the kid in me was always wondered, what was it like before we were sent to Earth? Like, how did God know we were ready to come down and be here? Kind of thing. I mean, of course He knows, but I feel like overall I think it was a great movie in showing us that living on the day by day, especially right now. I feel like in the pandemic, we were reminded especially of that, like living day by day and taking it day by day. And I think God calls us to that too. Like there's some truth to like some deep truth. I don't know how to formulate into words, but I think we forget that. We're so caught in doing these grandiose gestures, these big goals, big dreams. Nothing wrong with that. But I think that in pursuing those things, we don't appreciate the fact that we something as simple as walking or walking in the wind and just feeling the air, how the wind blows in your hair, I'm not trying to offend no one here. But I don't know if you've ever stopped to think like what the wind feels like on your face or on your skin, like as it hits you, like you think, oh, that is just some philosophy thing. No, but like really, have you stopped to like just allow yourself to feel and be present in that moment, So that's what that movie reminded me a lot of. It's not just regular old living. It's like living day to day in such a way that you are doing exactly what God is calling you to do.
And then because I felt like in the whole movie, they were so concerned about their purpose,
Yeah.
what was I called to do? They were so like their minds were clouded with that thought. And then I loved the scene where he's like sitting, but it's 22 in his body. And the pedal fell down, right?
Yes.
And just like his look, she was just like, wow, this is so beautiful. So when we are so preoccupied with, what is my calling? What am I supposed to do? When we're so worried, we miss, God's graces. We miss, we can't identify God in our surroundings. Like you said with the wind, like you walk outside and when I feel the wind, I'm like, Holy Spirit. you know, like that's the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit. And so I felt like for me, that's what that movie was about. It's like when we're so worried about that, we miss what God has to give us. So,
Yeah. And then right now, this is a hypothetical question. Take it as you wish. It's like, and then your everyday today living, can you see God?
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. Every time I feel the wind, it reminds me of my mom who says, put on a sweater. It's like
Or
every
why
time I
did you
go
forget
inside,
your sweater?
why'd you forget your sweater? It's like you're gonna get a cold. Um, but I like the movie because it's a happy, feel good movie. I think I lost a little bit in watching it because I have this tendency, and I need to stop to watch movies that have a connotation to faith, as in the title soul, to immediately go into looking at it theologically. Is this theologically sound? Is this appropriate to watch? Is this teaching something that is contrary to the faith? Instead of just enjoying it. So I had to
I did
watch
the
it
same thing.
twice. Yeah, I had to watch it twice. First one to critique it, to find all of the errors in what it's teaching, and then the second time to just sit down and enjoy it. And it just brought me back to remind how I used to teach my kids that there was a Santa Claus and a Tooth Fairy, and it didn't really harm them uh, much. And I think a little bit of enjoyment and fairy tales is okay, is fine. The movie was enjoyable. It reminded me of a really old movie. I think it was a Shirley Temple movie, really old. Um, It was in Technicolor, but it was a movie where these children were up in heaven waiting to be born, and one was just waiting, and it just brought me back to that, where there's all these children up in heaven, they're just running around, and then poof, then they go back down and they become babies and they grow up, and then they go back to heaven when they pass. I mean, it was a cute movie. I think Soul is a cute movie. I love the jazz. Um,
Yeah.
I love the concept of yeah, of understanding um, that you have to live life to have those experiences. Um, it brought me back to one of the youths who would always ask me, Mr. Arnell, you have a story for everything. And I think that's, people would say, Mr. Arnell, you have a story for everything. Um, and I think the reason for that is when you've lived life and you've screwed up and you've made mistakes, and a lot of mistakes, and yeah, some happy, some very joyful happiness, that you come up and you hold on to those stories, and you're meant to share that. So unless you live life and make mistakes, then you won't have much of a story to tell.
Mhm.
So
That's
yeah.
true. Oh,
Can I share what my thoughts on the movie? So,
No,
oh, okay.
sorry, Tony.
And welcome to the idea of what happens on the roasting channel on Instagram. So what I
And
was
that's
gonna
without wine.
I know, that's so true. Now imagine the wine. Ooh, mm-mm.
You guys finished?
Always.
So me and Bethany have been watching Disney movies. I'm filtering through all the ones that I haven't seen. And we're very Catholic, and spoiler alert. So we just like randomly mention like, oh, this reminds me of this about the faith and this, and right. So I did exactly what Arnell did. Was I was looking at it from like, is this theologically sound? What can I pull? What faith elements I can pull from this? And I think the biggest thing that I can touch on is similar to what Bethany mentioned as far as the purpose and specifically identity. I think our youth gravitate to identifying themselves as certain attributes or hobbies, right? I play soccer, I'm a soccer player. I like to paint, I'm an artist. I'm this, and I title myself as that. And that movie did a great job of saying, no, you're more than just one thing that you like. There's not one spark and that makes you the whole sound person. That's who you are, right? For the Catholic perspective is that we are children of God, that we are made in the image and likeness of God. That's the Catholic perspective, but it does bring down to the point of this earthly perspective that we're not just one person of one attribute, one hobby, one interest. We are a whole person. Every experience, like walking, doing like these mundane things, like our heart beating, like that's part of who we are. That's a miracle. That's a huge thing. And that's what I got from it is it does a good job of making sure that we understand that even the mundane, even the small little things are miracles and things for us to move forward. Just like in this 2020, those little things, we move forward because we have life. Like, and that's what I got from it. It's very sound. It's perfect for this year. I told Bethany, I was like, this is insane that it came out. Because obviously this was written probably at least 2 years ago, if not longer, right? Because that's how film works. But for it to come out in this year at this such a relevant time in our world, that we might be on a pause, but we are living our lives. What's the famous rapper? I forget who said this, but everyone's alive, but not everyone's living. Can you hear me?
No, I was saying, you asked who the famous rapper was, and I said must be Tony.
Oh, no, Lauren.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Sorry,
I'm
go
done.
ahead.
Wow.
No, I'm done.
No.
That's me in the chat when I get roasted. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna comment. Just kidding.
Oh.
We're gonna love this. It's like, okay, guys, when if you're listening to this and you have like a wine recommendation, send us our way, and that's what we'll drink We'll tell you if it sucks or if it doesn't.
From Walmart or however I
Walmart.
pronounced it.
I'm actually, you know what, guys, I actually have a really pretty good buzz going. Um,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, that's
So the
hilarious.
rule of thumb is once this glass empties, that's pretty much the podcast is over. We're almost done.
Yeah. You know what, Tony, thank you for saying that. You know, you do bring that, well, exactly what you said, I think. Just, what is it, hits the nail? I don't know how to
Nail on
put
the
it.
head.
Nail on the
Yeah,
head.
there you go. Thank you. Because I think we often get so in what is it? We get so caught up in just that one thing and become very obsessed with that one thing, and we think that thing defines us. And I think honestly, that's why I struggled as a teacher, because I only thought I was a teacher and that was that.
Right.
But there was something deep within my soul that was stirring me and saying, no, you are not just that, you are more than that. At that time, it made no sense to me. But hearing you say that, I'm like, it makes sense why back then I felt the way that I did, because I only saw myself as that one thing. And you know, last night I was, or this morning, I don't remember, I had a thought. When don't I think, right? And I said to myself, do I believe the lie and fake it till I make it, or do I live my truth and know my worth? I don't know what that means. That's just a thought that crossed my mind, but I think there's some truth to it. Like, how many lies have we not believed about ourselves, that we're only good enough for blank? We're not good enough for blank, you know? But then there's God's infinite graces and mercies that remind us, no, you are enough. I cover you. Even when you think you're the worst, I still cover you. You know, I still want you to throw yourselves in my arms. Like in the example of St. Teresa of Lisieux, like that was one thing. Like she always admitted and recognized her weakness. And at the same time, um, how the value and importance of why we need to thrust ourselves into the arms of Jesus even more when we feel that way.
Yeah, and it's so true because, like, okay, so you're a teacher, or again, the example of the soccer player. What happens
Yeah.
if you lose your job? What happens if that person hurts themselves in a way that they can't play soccer anymore? The risk of putting yourself as identity as one attribute or one hobby, one interest, is that can be taken away.
Yes.
The image and likeness of God that you were created by cannot.
No.
That's in the core of your identity, and that
Amen.
can't be taken.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Yeah.
Beautifully made. Beautifully said. And on that note, I'm going to take my last swig of our wine.
Woohoo!
Which means, ooh, there's like leftover inside.
Another 20 minutes.
Which empties my glass, which means it empties which means it ends this episode of Wine
So
with
smooth. So smooth.
That was really smooth. That's what happens when you get buzzed in this podcast series.
Oh my God.
So, fam, that's it for this episode of this connected podcast, Wine with YAM series. If it did or did not connect, please email us your comments or questions to Catholic.dad@gmail.com. If you have complaints, please send it to Tony Pimentel at St. Oscar Romero Catholic Community. He is the new faith formation coordinator. It was his fault. No credit for it whatsoever. You can also follow us on our Instagram at thisconnected at Catholic.dad on Instagram. Check us out there. That's where we put our silly stuff. Make sure to also subscribe on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Also, we're trying to make it on the YouTubes. Thanks for our Tony Pimentel, who's out of the closet. Usually he's in our closet back there. That's where we keep Tony. But on this series, we let him out of the closet.
Oh my gosh.
Again, this is Wine with YAM with Bethany and Catherine. and Tony, the Tony Pimentel, famous artist. Yes. My
Subscribe.
favorite youth minister from St. Oscar Romero, and myself, Catholic.dad. Please support us, and as always, live a life of holiness, be blessed, and be third. Go. Music on the other side. Sing it, Tony.
Different points of view and highs and lows. A new perspective everywhere you go. Open up your mind, drown out the noise, and see if this connected.
Just cut it
See
right there.
if this connected.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut it there.
Yeah, cut it there. Cut it there.
There you go. That was the end.